Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ex Post Watcho, a podcast about watching old movies and talking about them. My name is Jason, and I'm joined by my friend...
Ilana.
Hello, Ilana. How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you today?
I'm good. I don't know why we ask these rhetorical questions. I know how you're doing. You don't have to tell me. This week, we're going to watch a movie I definitely saw as a kid a couple of times, but it's been a while, and that is The Sandlot from 1993. This is a kids movie about sports and friends and friendship, and I think there's a dog in it. Oh, there definitely is a dog in it. So, yeah, Ilana, have you ever seen this movie?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it several times. I remember I really loved this movie when I was a kid, even though I'm not really into sports. I think it was that I had a crush on one of the boys in the movie when I was younger. So it was all about the Sandlot. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny movie. And I think probably sad. I think I'll probably cry. Each week, my prediction is, I think I'm going to cry. And usually that prediction does come to fruition. So I'm really excited to watch it because I really don't remember much about it.
I have some vague recollections. There's a few points I remember. They play baseball. I think their ball ends up in another yard. It's like the dad's ball. It's really important. It's like autographed. And then they have to like figure out how to get the ball back. And I think the yard that the ball lands into belongs to Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. So they're scared to go get it. And there's a big scary dog there. And I think that's the crux of the movie. Really, what I remember is the whole forever part where they just repeat forever, which is really fun just to say as a grown-up.
I agree. I do remember that. That's maybe the only thing. And maybe does one of the boys pretend to be in trouble at the swimming pool because the lifeguard, he's like in love with the lifeguard and she has to save him, the redhead boy?
Yeah. That rings a bell.
Or maybe, was it the redhead? Anyway, one of the boys. That's all I can kind of remember.
I'm pretty sure there's a scene where they reminisce about like a pie eating contest and someone eats too much and like barfs and everybody starts barfing. Yeah, okay. There is a scene of just a lot of people throwing up. I'm fairly certain that's this movie.
Oh God, I hope it's not. I hope it's not, and then we have to find out what it is or what kind of freaky dreams you're having. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, this one has been a bit of a while for both of us, so I think we're just going to have to go ahead and watch it and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's get to it. Hello, everybody. We're back from watching The Sandlot. Ilana, let me ask you, what's the biggest pickle you've ever been in?
Wait, can you ask me just one more time?
What's the biggest pickle you've ever been in?
Wait, just one more time.
I'm not saying it 3 times. That's how you summon the beast. So we just watched The Sandlot. That's just a goofy line from the movie that shows up multiple times for some reason. What did you think of The Sandlot?
I know I'm going to get some heat for this, but I did not enjoy it as much as I was hoping to upon this rewatching, because I really did love it when I was a kid. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I was a little bit underwhelmed. How about yourself?
I think I probably enjoyed it a little bit more than you, but I understand your feelings on it because to a degree I feel them as well. Yeah, it had been a super long time since I've seen it, so a lot of this was coming back new to me. In the my extremely low effort introduction segment, I basically threw out a couple plot details of like, oh, it's a movie about they play baseball and then they lose their ball and then there's a dog and James Earl Jones, and I forgot how much of this movie was just not that. Like that comes like halfway through. And the first half is just like a bunch of kids. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, it's like it's pleasant. It's got some humor and charm, and but at the same time, it's a little lacking in some places, I guess.
Yeah, plot's a little bit thin here. Those kids really carry this movie.
Yeah, the first half of the movie is just like it's not. I don't think it's really a 3-act structure. I think it's a 2-act structure because like the first half is basically you meet Scott Smalls, our main character, and he meets the other kids, and then they kind of instantly become friends and go on adventures together. And then the second half is now there's like the stakes have been introduced, and it goes from there.
Yeah, very low stakes when we are introduced to these kids. Like I had fun watching it. Like it really captures the kind of summer shenanigans vibes, and I really thought these kids did such a great job. They were all so funny. Their reactions were great. I don't know what director did with them, but like really good job. But yeah, it's like more than halfway into this film, we finally get the real meat of the plot. And then it seems like it's over fairly quickly. And then we just get a little wrap up and then it's night. So I just didn't expect it to be so sparse on the plot.
Yeah. So, so this is the story of Scotty Smalls, who's an incredibly awkward kid who moves to a new neighborhood. He's got a stepdad that he's like trying to bond with, but it's painful to watch, played by Dennis Leary. What do you think of Dennis Leary in this?
I feel like if I hadn't seen this before, I would be very suspicious of Dennis Leary because he comes across like a real dink right at the beginning. And it's just very cold, I guess classic stepdad vibes. What year was this movie released?
Came out in 93.
Yeah, so I thought that they could have fleshed that story out a little bit more because I didn't really care about stepdad. And then even when the baseball went missing later on, that was stepdad's, it was like, do we know enough about this stepfather to know how he's really going to react? Like, we know this is important to him. The mom, even at one point, like after the baseball's missing, she's like, has he ever told you about that ball to her kid? Which doesn't really go. She doesn't tell a story where like it doesn't really go too in depth. So stepdad was just like a plot device. I didn't feel like he was a real human being, really. I really like Dennis Leary, but there was not much of him in this. I think it could have used a bit more.
Yeah, definitely the depth, I guess, of the relationship and the character there, and kind of the characters overall. It is a little like, this one in particular is pretty like not explored. Like, he's the stepdad, and like I couldn't tell if like so Smalls is trying to like reach out to him to like be friends with them, or he trips over whether he should call him Bill or Dad, but you can't really tell like where he's at with that, or like what the nature of the relationship is. Like, does the dad not like the kid, or are they both kind of just like it's a weird situation so they don't know how to deal with each other, or is the dad a huge dick or something like that? Like, you kind of can't tell. I do think though that when it comes to the ball, that is like the stakes are like, even though it's not super laid out exactly what's going to happen, it's kind of like the ultimate, oh shit, you've pissed off your parent, so you're just going to suffer the worst possible consequences, which could range from like getting yelled at to, I don't know, getting beat up or something like that. If it's
I feel like beating your kids up in the 60s was pretty common, so
that could have been an outcome of this movie.
Taken a very, very dark turn at the end.
So he makes friends with the neighborhood kids. Credit to him for basically just going out cold calling to the baseball field where he saw the other kids hang out, and like, I'm going to do it. as a kid, that was not my personality. I would not be the one just like charging onto the field to try and meet friends. My parents would be like pushing me and telling me to do it. And then I'd be like having a panic attack, freaking out. But anyway, he sucks at baseball and they kind of laugh at him for a bit. But then he gets a pep talk from kind of like the actual hero of this movie, Benny, the Jet Rodriguez.
Benjamin Franklin Rodriguez, full name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Was I in love with Benny when I was a kid? I was like, that's a man. He's taking care of his team. He's a good guy. He really has no downfalls, this kid.
That was one of my observations of this, was he is actually just like a really good role model, like in terms of personality and you know, character. Like he invites Smalls to come play baseball with him, and he's got a glove.
He's got everything in his pocket. He pulls out a glove for Smalls. Later on, he pulls out a hat for Smalls. What is he keeping in those pockets? Yeah, exactly. It was like a Mary Poppins purse. He's got like giant clown pants.
But you know, like he gets him on the team, and then like all the other kids are like, this dude sucks. He's an L7 weenie. I don't know what that means exactly.
I don't either. So many great lines in this movie that I remembered as they happened. Like, as kids, we would repeat them constantly. Like, I'm the great Bambino. Like, we didn't know shit about baseball or Babe Ruth, or L7 weenie. Obviously, forever.
Yeah, that's
so classic.
That bit is really good.
Yeah.
So they start playing baseball a bunch and becoming friends. And then at this point, the movie's kind of just like the story of a bunch of kids hanging out in the summertime, living life, which I think is like why a lot of people liked it as kids. Mm-hmm. And that part I found, like, it definitely made me nostalgic watching this of like summertime. You don't have any real responsibilities. You just hang out wherever and fuck around all day.
Yeah, it really was quite sweet and really funny. There's some really hilarious moments and kind of gross moments. A lot of stuff that I forgot about. Definitely stuff that I feel wouldn't get on film today, maybe. Stuff
you could write 1,000 words for certain websites about today. So their baseball field is haunted? No, it's not haunted. It's
There's a poltergeist.
Yeah, there's a poltergeist in the field. What did you build the baseball field on? There's a big scary dog that lives in the yard, basically where you'd pop a home run into, and we start to get glimpses of the beast, the threat in this movie, which is when you first see this dog kind of shown in the background, they really actually make it look like a dinosaur, which is great. Yeah, so we start to see the dog and you know get alerted to its presence in the movie, and eventually the kids go hang out in a treehouse, which that treehouse is bullshit in terms of false expectations of how good treehouses actually are in reality.
Is that where they were when they were making s'mores?
Yeah, they were in the treehouse. One of the kids lives in the house next door to the beast. I presume because there's a treehouse there and they hang out there all day.
I think it was Squints. I think he was, because he was like, "Look out that window."
Yeah, and that's where we get the whole backstory of the beast, which I think that part is probably the best part of the movie, the black and white segment where they give its whole history.
Yeah, that was really well done. Super, super whimsical, really funny. The way kids tell stories, so over the top, so inaccurate. What does he say? Like, there were 173 guys or something.
And like we get a bunch of shots of like the dog in that scene, and it's like this massive puppet. Like, it looks like to scale probably the size of like a horse or a rhinoceros.
Yeah.
And then like the thieves are just like cartoon thieves with striped shirts and masks.
Yeah, I loved that part. That was really, release. There were so many things about this film. Like, it takes place in the 60s, but it often doesn't feel that way because so much, I think, still was relevant and still how kids sort of spent their summers in the 90s.
Yeah, there isn't really like anything that firmly, other than, the aesthetics, that plants it in the 60s. Like, they don't really focus on that at all.
No, and then there were just kind of some of these moments, like when he's telling the story, it kind of gives you a little bit more context in terms of when they are experiencing all of this. Probably like the movies they grew up watching or that their parents watch. And then you're like, oh yeah, this is taking place in the 1960s, not last week.
Yeah, not the 90s. But I don't know, it was made in the 90s, so like I do consider this a 90s movie. Like the fact that it was set in the 60s kind of always, I don't actually remember that detail. Like I can't remember, maybe I did say it in the intro that I knew it took place then, but like that fact easily falls out of my brain because it's kind of, even a Babe Ruth ball would have still been, I guess, a big deal in the 90s. And baseball was big in the 90s.
Yeah. Were you like a baseball person?
Not really. Definitely not in terms of playing it. Most of my okay, here's the thing about this movie. The first 10 minutes, I very much identify with Smalls as like this loser who sucks at baseball and is like awkwardly trying to make friends. Then where it loses me is he sticks his hand out in the air and catches a ball and then immediately throws it properly, and then that's it. That's the end of bad at baseball Smalls. And I in real life never got to that point. I was just always terrible at it. So now I'm just resentful.
I gotcha.
Yeah. I didn't really watch much on TV either. I knew there was like, because like the Toronto Blue Jays won 2 World Series in the 90s. So I know in Canada, like when I was of that age, baseball kind of was like a thing that people talked about that had an interest in.
Yeah. I wasn't big on baseball, but my grandpa really liked baseball. So like a game would be on when I'd be at the farm, my grandparents' farm sometimes. And I played t-ball when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not good at like team sports. I just struggled to even find the words for that. There was too much pressure and I was too shy. So that moment where like Smalls runs the ball back to somebody rather than throwing it, and he's like, oh, here, sorry. That was me playing basketball in junior high. Like someone would go to block me and they would fall over and I would like stop and say sorry. Like it was just an impulse. So I can identify with that as well. I was not like a team sports player. But also we didn't have a Benny there to, hit the ball directly into our gloves. We just needed that boost of confidence, maybe.
Yeah, you just need that one player who can carry the team.
Yeah, if only we had a Benny.
I did get into sports a little bit as an adult. Like I started playing hockey and I played baseball for like one summer and I was just like, no, I'm still shit at this. I don't like it.
Was that for like a work team or something?
Yeah, it was like slow pitch, so it was pretty relaxed. Yeah. But even then, I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much.
Yeah, I'll watch. I'll get a hot dog and I'll sit in the stands and I'll watch and spit some sunflower seeds, and that's about what I'll do.
Yeah,
with baseball.
And if you don't feel like playing baseball, you can go to the pool. So there is a turning point in this movie, which is basically where like we remember that it's a bunch of teenage kids and they discover being horny. And Squints at the pool says, I can't take this no more.
Yeah, they say he's pervin a dish.
Pervin a dish. Oh, that was a line in the movie. I saw that in your notes.
Yeah. Pervin a dish.
Pervin a dish. Okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about Squints at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Squints.
I mean,
go ahead.
You go, because you were a teenage boy. I was not. I think the experience was a little different. As much as I'd like to be like, boys and girls aren't that different, I think that there are some real cultural and societal differences that make
the culture
this make
of
sense
boys
for little boys a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I saw this as a kid, this didn't come across as a thing you should actually do, I guess.
Right.
Maybe that's just me and my personality. I am, it would take a lot of balls, I guess, to do something like this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's a funny movie for kids, so it's played for laughs, and like, I don't know. I'm just shrugging my shoulders.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I did laugh. Like, he's staring at what's her name? Wendy
Peppercorn.
Wendy Peppercorn, the hot piece around town, I guess, because they're kind of ogling her in the street earlier, and then she's oiling up. She's putting on her suntan lotion, and he's just like staring, and he's like lotioning, oiling, and lotioning and oiling. And it seems I mean, how old are these boys supposed to be? Like, I'd put them around like 11 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I will say they're at about an age
before
where
grade 6, so that is around 11.
Yeah. I do remember that period of time, and that would be a period of time where you'd notice oilings going on. You'd be like, yeah. something's happening here.
Yeah, I can't take it anymore. And then just like pulls this sneaky little trick where he pretends he's drunk. Well, I wasn't totally clear at first if he actually did just put his life on the line.
I think he did. They said he can't swim, so he just like dives in the pool, and then he just like boop, like, I mean, he doesn't even move his arms.
Yeah.
He just sinks.
He's like, it's now or never, baby. Like, it's worth it.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? As the movie has taught us, it absolutely works. They get married. They get married and have 9 kids.
9 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very like, what was her name? Mary, the one with the kid, and she had a sexual relationship with him in the 90s. Letourneau?
I know who you're talking about. I don't know her name.
I think she died recently. Anyway, she went to like prison or jail or whatever. I don't know the difference in the states. And then they ended up getting married and having kids.
So,
I mean,
life lessons.
The heart wants what it wants. Yeah, just trick a woman into getting her money. And she doesn't really seem, at first she's like dragging him along, like, you little pervert. And then she's just like, you know what? Lovable little squints.
Yeah, she
Good
like,
for you, kid.
She bans them from the pool. She's like super pissed off. And then the kids are all standing on the fence outside. And then Squints is there just holding onto the fence, just like ogling her. And then she, puts the sunglasses down and like winks. You're like,
maybe that's the moment she knew she was going to marry that boy. Maybe it's one of those cases where, when like really beautiful women are like, oh, like men don't approach me, I'm too beautiful. And this Squints had the balls. He did it.
Squints is a go-getter. He grew up. That should be the end credit scene. Is like he went on to write a bunch of books about how to seduce women.
Like The Game.
Yeah. Squints is the original Neil Strauss. I think that's his name. Mystery was the guy.
Oh God, I don't even want to think about those guys. Let's not give them any airtime. I at this point I was like, oh yeah, this is because obviously it's a group of young boys, which is fine. I mean,
that's allowed.
That's allowed. But yeah, very much targeted toward them. Like as a girl, I thought it was like a fun movie, and I had a little, like I said, I was like in love with Benny, but there wasn't much, I think, for me in terms of content as a young girl, certainly not as a grown woman. And also, I really did not love all the fat jokes for Ginger Kid in the first half of the movie. Like every time we see him, he's just grabbing food and just piling food on top of food. And
I could kind of identify with that these days. I don't know. I was like, that's a real character. I believe that.
It made me kind of sad. I guess things have changed so much. We're so much more sensitive to people, and some people would call us all snowflakes, and just suck it up. But I felt like, I mean, he didn't seem like a victim, but I didn't love it watching it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't even like notice any of that. Like I know it was there, but it just kind of washed over me.
Yeah. I think I probably at the time was just like, oh, haha, like there's always a fat kid, there's always a nerdy kid, there's always like the cool guy. I was probably just paying attention to Benny when I first saw it. Also, saying Benny is weird because my dog's name is Benny.
Yeah, I got kind of confused for a minute there.
Yeah. Maybe I should refer to him as his full name, Benjamin Franklin Rodriguez.
Benny the Jet.
Yeah.
There's this whole scene where they meet another baseball team and play baseball with them. That was kind of... I didn't understand why that was in there. Like, it didn't move the plot in any direction, and it actually kind of didn't make sense. So, like, they're in the Sandlot, and then this group of ruffians, these other baseball kids, who all have, like, nice bikes and uniforms and are, like, clearly on an organized team, come up and, like, start giving them shit, and they just start, like, throwing insults at each other. And then they challenge each other to play a game in the fancy baseball field for... I don't remember what the stakes were, if there were any. But they kick their...
either.
The Sandlot kids win and, like, decisively kick their asses, which makes no sense. I don't understand what kind of, like, baseball program they're running there that makes them so good at baseball that they can take down a somewhat professional team.
Yeah, I didn't understand either. It seemed like just a fun way to, like, sling insults, and which I really did enjoy when little Ginger and the sort of gang leader of that bicycled uniformed team came up, which I read was mostly improvised, and the kids were being fed their lines through an earpiece. I particularly enjoyed the in face. I'm reading and talking at the same time. I can't do it. Pee drinking crap face was one of them, and then the kicker, the final, this is the end all be all of all insults. You play baseball like a girl.
Damn.
And that's when they show down, and they're like, you did not go there. So yet again, very much for young boys. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny when they were throwing insults back and forth, but I agree. It was kind of, but I would argue that a lot of the first half of the movie was sort of nothing really mattered in terms of moving the plot along. Yeah.
So I believe this is based on a book of some sort. So this might be one of those things where maybe in the book, like the pacing kind of, you can have these random things happen, I guess. But in the context of this movie, it just leads to this weird, like, 2-act structure where kind of like a bunch of stuff happens that isn't super consequential, you know, other than you meet the characters and like what they're all about. And then the second half, like the actual plot stakes kick in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe we're meant to understand that these kids playing in the Sandlot, you know, it's kind of this rough baseball field that they've kind of just carved out for themselves. Maybe these kids just don't have a lot of money. Maybe they're, you know, these little like latchkey kids. They're just running around on their own. These other kids are maybe like the little Richie Riches from the other side of the tracks, and so maybe that's supposed to make us, you know, feel even more at the end, you know, when we see success come to these kids, or, you know, you need to work hard to fucking succeed or whatever. Maybe that's what that scene was trying to do, but it just, I mean, yeah, it was just kind of boring and pointless.
Yeah, I could see a reading that is like, yeah, these are the rich kids with their fancy uniforms and bikes and stadium, but they don't have the fucking heart of baseball like the Sandlot kids do, who are living in the streets scraping by to get balls to play.
With their stepdads.
Yeah. So then we get the whole scene at the carnival. Okay, so in the introduction segment, I said I remembered a scene in this movie with a pie eating contest and everybody barfing.
Right.
I was wrong. That scene is from Stand By Me, which actually I think this movie is sort of like a much child-friendlier version of Stand By Me in a way.
I've never seen Stand By Me.
Okay. There's a scene that is a retelling of a story by a bunch of kids. So here's the sort of similarities between Stand By Me and this movie, why I bring that up. Stand By Me is a story of a bunch of kids who go on this journey it's based on a Stephen King book to like find something. And along the way, adventures happen. And there is one scene where like they're recounting a story to each other about a pie eating contest where like everybody starts throwing up and it's like the grossest thing. And it ends with one of those classic segments where they go through each character and they're like, Timmy went on to blah blah blah, and Bob got shot in Vietnam and stuff like that. So that's why that why that rung a bell with me so much. But anyway, that is not the same movie. Coincidentally, there is a scene in this movie where a bunch of people puke that I did not remember at all, and I think it's incredibly disgusting.
Yeah, I didn't remember it either. It was so funny. First of all, the Tequila song makes another appearance. I don't know what was going on in the 80s and 90s that the Tequila song by the Champs really blew up again. But that's where we're at with this music, which was all over the place in this movie also. But yeah, I did not remember this scene at all. Those kids were so funny with their reactions when they were on the carnival ride. Oh my God. And I read that they were chewing something with licorice and it was something else. And it actually did make the kids feel sick. Because, yeah, the reason they're sick is because they're chewing tobacco. So I guess most of the kids in that scene actually were experiencing a level of nausea anyway. It was pretty funny, but it was pretty disgusting. And again, like, I get it. They're chewing tobacco, baseball. And then they switch to what is it? Big Chew? Is that what it's called?
Oh, I don't remember.
The gum?
Yeah.
And there are a few scenes after that where they're all chewing gum, which is pretty cute. So I guess it does make sense, but God, and there's always, why are they, I don't know. I don't remember that much barf when I was a kid. Maybe it's a boy thing.
The barf was particularly bad, I think, because of, I think it's probably accurate if you were to like swallow a bunch of chewing tobacco and barf it up. It might look like that, but like, wow, not fun to see. Yeah, I felt nauseous as soon as they like busted out the bag of tobacco, because I've never chewed tobacco, but I used to smoke cigarettes, and when I was quitting, I would chew nicotine gum all the time, which is just weird because you like put it in your mouth and then within 30 seconds or so, it starts to like hit your brain and you just get like kind of nauseous in a weirdly pleasant way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I also have fond memories of going on rides like that, not on any drugs or alcohol, and just getting incredibly sick. Like, I've never been able to stomach carnival rides. So I was definitely like feeling for the kids there.
There are always carnivals in movies like this, and everyone's like, yeah, and going wild. And there used to be a carnival that came through when I lived in a very small town when I was younger. And I always thought, even at I've always been a very cautious person. And I was like, these guys set these up in the middle of the night, and then you're going to fling me across the field or into the air on this machine. I'm not sure I trust this. So I know I was supposed to go and like have fun, or like even the bumper cars. I was like, I hate this. Is chaos. I hate this. So it's always like presented in movies like this is fucking cool and so much fun, and we're supposed to just get right on board with this. And it's just a bit of it induces anxiety in me. So that also contributed to my uneasy feelings with this barf scene.
I'm just picturing you as a child like wandering through an amusement park being like, what is all this? What are you people doing? What's the purpose of all this?
Internally, I was doing that. I was probably carrying around a little book trying to find a place to sit down and read in the shade. I was a very fun, cool kid.
Elana and I both rate high on the neuroticism scale. I had never actually drawn the connection or realized that like the rides were built the night before, but like that is absolutely a good point. Like once you kind of realize like, oh, wait a minute, this carnival ride has been dragged across the continent multiple times in all these different climates and all of these different people with like, I don't know the qualifications to be a person, to be a carny, basically. Is there like, did they put you on the spot and have you like repair something to see if you're capable, or did they just like hire you immediately?
I mean, there's that carnival kind of lore, right? Of like,
you know what? I bet things actually today are super regulated. I'm just predicting. Today. Yeah, we've gone soft.
Yeah, they have to be. But I mean, those rides are still pretty rickety when you drive by. Look, it's transient. They're moving all over the place all the time. Hard to lock them down.
Yeah.
But it's easy to slip through the cracks with those. I don't want to hate on the carnies. Is that offensive?
I don't
like
know.
I'm going to offend someone. Let's move on. Let's get out of this carnival.
The dark carnival we're in. So now comes Act 2 of the movie. Act 2. The kid does the dumbest shit imaginable. None of this makes sense to me why he does this. So
yeah.
Benny slams the ball real hard and it like explodes. And that's pretty cool. I'd feel pretty proud if I did that. And they're like, this is foreshadowing. But then I think the pickle line comes up again at this point. I'm not sure. So Smalls runs home to get a ball and he gets the signed ball that has been alluded to earlier in the movie. And then they're playing baseball and he hits the home run that knocks it into the Beast's home. And
the kid who could barely catch a ball maybe a week or two earlier.
Yeah. He's only
Good
capable of like succeeding if he like fucks himself over at the same time.
That's
Poetic.
relatable.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I'm like, you know what? If I hit a home run, I bet it would be under dumb circumstances like that where I'd immediately start crying. So Smalls immediately realizes that this is not a good situation and explains to the boys that this ball was signed by a famous woman named Ruth something. And then they're like, you fucking idiot. You're dead.
Yeah, I don't understand how he's been playing baseball with this group of boys for, it seems like at the very least a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And they worship Babe Ruth. Everything is baseball all the time. And he's still like, he's not presented to us as a stupid, ignorant child. He's presented to us as kind of a smart, nerdy, sensitive kid.
He's an egghead. He calls himself an egghead.
Yeah, he hasn't picked up on the fact that Babe Ruth is the great Bambino. He's all these other, names that have been attributed to him, who is the greatest baseball player of all time.
Yeah, a lot of things don't make, it just doesn't make sense because how would you not have, I don't know what the culture of the 60s was like in terms of was baseball popular, but it seems like Babe Ruth is kind of like the Wayne Gretzky of baseball, if you will, and that people know who he is. So I'm surprised A, he didn't know the name, but B, that he just by nature of being a signed ball, do you understand that concept? Do you understand autographs? And that, usually if something is autographed, it's like that for a reason. It has some kind of value, I guess. You shouldn't destroy it. And also, the plan was to just use the ball and then put it back. But you got to know that thing's going to get all banged up. It's not going to be the same ball after an afternoon. It's going to have, marks on it and stuff like that. So anyway.
Also, though, at this point, he's in with these boys. He's accepted as one of them. So it doesn't entirely make sense that he feels so motivated to go and steal this ball from his stepfather, this signed baseball, which even if he doesn't know quite who Babe Ruth is or the value of a signed ball, it's kept in this room, which seems like his stepdad's baseball memorabilia room. And it's clear that there's, as the mom says, has he ever told you about that ball? He knows.
Well, he hears that right after he fucks up and he puts the fake ball there. So that was a bit of oh shit.
But even still, I mean, I did like how they're well, you got 98 cents kicking around for a new ball. These kids are we don't have any money. Again, these poor kids from the wrong side of the tracks, I guess. But to feel compelled to go get that baseball just to, I don't know what, just to keep the game going for the rest of the day with this group of boys that you've already established your place within, that also didn't make sense to me. This could have happened way sooner in the movie. It should have. Look.
Yeah.
Turbo plot here.
I think my recollection of this was that he gets the ball because he wants to do good by his friends that he's trying to impress, he's I got a ball, I'll help, which 10 minutes into the movie would have made absolute sense, which is like where I thought this happened when I was remembering back on it. But the way it's plays out here, it's not like a rational decision on his part. So that comes across as a bit goofy.
Yeah.
And now we get it turns into like a Mission Impossible movie where they're trying to get the ball back from the dog next door. And so, yeah, at this part we get a lot of like contraptions they're putting together to like get the ball. And then at every possible turn, the beast is like having none of it. And I like this part. This actually kind of was entertaining. I like the way they made the dog look with the puppet and stuff like that. Like just how ridiculously huge it is during these scenes.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun too. That 90s invention contraption thing that you see so often. It went on a little bit long for me. I was like, God damn, these kids have another. I mean, I guess they're desperate to get the ball, but yeah, a little bit long for me, but it was still pretty cute. You know, each boy had his part to play and that suited his personality. And I thought that was pretty funny and well done.
They were a functioning team.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, that definitely is something I remember from kids' movies and enjoying about kids' movies was like the kids having to get out of a jam and like invent things and come up with solutions to problems and stuff like that. But the things they put together also don't make a lot of sense, just in that like the vacuum, that one didn't make sense to me, just because like they take 3 vacuums and like connect them together to make this giant arm to like suck up the ball, which like, you know, it wouldn't work, but who cares? It's a stupid kids movie. But I'm just thinking like, okay, you're scared of getting in trouble for a ball. You go to your parents and 3 different sets of parents and say, I broke our vacuum cleaner. Like that would not go over well.
I don't know. I think that the ball is dad's domain and the vacuum at this time would be mom's domain.
Oh, okay. So there's gender politics at play here.
I think so.
But I think the dad would still be pissed because he probably would be the one who has to go buy a replacement.
The dad for sure paid. Even my mom. So when I was just a wee little babe, my parents lived on a farm, and it was a fairly small farm. And a vacuum salesman came to the door and he asked my mom if my dad was home. And she said, no, can I help you? And he said, well, I've got vacuums. And she was like, well, I'm the one who's going to be using that thing. So tell me about it. And he was like, I'll wait till your husband's home.
Is it Don Draper?
So even in the 1980s, that was still happening. But yeah, I actually liked the vacuum one. I thought that was really, I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was fun.
I liked when they got the catapult thing and then it flung it through the air and then the dog just jumps through the air and eats the ball. That was cool.
Yeah.
So they try and figure out solutions and then I guess sleep on it because Benny has a dream where he meets Babe Ruth, who gives him like a kind of vague pep talk.
This was weird because it's such a point of view shift. We've been with Smalls the entire time, and it's clear that Benny's an important part of the story and that he's a bit of a, like you said, a role model for these other boys. He seems maybe a couple of years older than them. But then all of a sudden it shifts and it's really Benny's story to nearly the end. Which I found kind of strange. Like, why didn't Babe Ruth... I get it, like, Babe Ruth is very important to Benny, but why didn't he just visit Smalls? Like, oh, here's Babe Ruth. It's not some, like, sexy woman, like maybe he thought. Oh,
God, what if it was a dream from Smalls' perspective, and that's what it was just, like, sexy Babe Ruth? Smalls, you gotta get that ball. Save me.
That would have been way more interesting.
I think the purpose of that, though, was because Benny was the one who, in the next scene, puts on his sick running shoes, gets the ball, and then gets chased around town. And I think this scene with Babe Ruth was like explaining to him why he should do that.
Yeah, but like why have we seen this from only Small's point? He's narrating this movie. Like literally we hear voiceover narration of grown-up Smalls talking about this, but all of a sudden we can see what Benny sees. It was just a bit odd.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I get it as a plot device, but it was a weird shift for me.
So Benny jumps the fence and gets chased around town.
First of all, they send him off like he's going to war. Like they're all standing around like this guy may not come back, which was pretty cute. Yeah. So and then he jumps the fence, and then there's this showdown with the dog with this Western style music. Which, again, the music all over the place, but kind of cute. I really kind of like those moments. That was sweet. Just the magnitude of this for those kids was so intense.
Yeah.
It was so big. So I liked that, actually, right before that. This whole kind of bananas chase around town.
Yeah, and the chase around town is whatever. It's a little dumb, but they set up the fact that the dog is going to jump through the movie theater like 3 different times. They're just like, okay, there's this chasing happening. Here's a bunch of people in a theater. Wonder what's going to happen here. Oh, and the movie.
Watching a werewolf movie.
A werewolf movie, yeah. And then, so of course the dog eventually jumps through. And then they run through this like town celebration thing. And there's 2 chefs with like a comically large cake. And both the dog and Benny run by the cake fine. I can't remember what happens next. Oh, it's the kids. The kids run through and then they knock the cake into the air. Basically, the cake goes flying. The chefs get cake on them.
Yeah. I wonder how long that shoot was that day.
That was, like 10% of the movie's budget was just on cakes.
Yeah, apparently this only took like 42 days to shoot or something like that. So it was like a fairly quick timeline. And knowing that and seeing that scene, it's like, wow. Interesting choice to keep that in that story.
Gotta have the cake.
Kids love a good cake smash.
Yeah. So they end up back at the house. They kind of do a full circle with that chasing. And then the fence falls on the dog and everybody gets really sad. I got really sad when that happens because you're like, oh no, is he okay? The dog is a good guy now.
But then this is a real 90s classic psych moment because, well, Smalls, being the little sweetie buns that he is, tries to get the fence off. And then as soon as they do, it's just like, psych, dog's okay. Here's a bunch of face licks. It's all good.
Dog is friendly now.
Don't even worry about it. Yeah. After all of that, after we waited so long to get to the second act, and then things just kind of go bonkers. Then it's like, JK, jokers, this dog's pretty chill.
Which kind of, I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. Like, the dog... Okay, so the way the dog is portrayed in the first chunk of the movie is kind of like you're being recanted a story from a child's perspective. So the dog is huge and like it does all these like crazy things. And I guess maybe once they do kind of cross the fence and actually interact with the dog, all of that stuff was like just projection from their brain of like what the dog was actually doing. Like maybe the dog actually just went up and calmly grabbed the ball and walked away with it. And they're just like freaking out.
Yeah.
And then they walk up to the door to knock on it and let Mr. Myrtle know that that his dog is back and was gone momentarily. And it's James Earl Jones, which is like, that's a big get. Yeah.
I actually was watching this last night. I was trying to finish it last night, but I was so tired and I fell asleep. But I guess I woke up when James Earl Jones was on, because I woke up enough that later on that night, last night when I woke up, there was a note on my notes and just like really sleepy writing that says, woke up to James Earl Jones with a heart. So it was very comforting. I love him in this movie. He's so comforting and sweet and wise and gentle and the kind of neighbor you would want.
Yeah, I forgot, like, I knew he was in this. I didn't realize he didn't show up until, like, literally, I don't know, the last 10 minutes. You don't You don't really see a lot of him, but yeah,
I would argue maybe this is Act 3 as James Earl Jones.
I kind of is, yeah. But it's very brief. It is a pretty wild coincidence that this baseball field where these kids are obsessed with baseball is like borders a yard with this guy who was a baseball legend that they had no idea existed. I mean, I guess that is kind of the lesson when they first start talking to him. They say, our ball, we've been trying to get the ball and blah, blah, blah. And he says, like, why didn't you just knock on the door and ask me? I would have given you the ball. And then they like get really mad at the one kid who said, I think it was Squints who said that idea wasn't on the table.
Yeah.
But the lesson is, just go talk to the person and maybe they'll have exactly the object you need to get out of the biggest pickle you've ever been in.
Yeah, he really does very quickly and super generously get them out of this pickle in a way that's almost not that believable.
Yeah. Movie magic.
Here, have this signed ball by like the entire team as a replacement. I already got enough shit kicking around. Here you go, kid.
Yeah, so that's basically it. He gets the new ball, he gives it to Dennis Leary, who is now like cool with calling him dad. They make a point of pointing that out. The Beast, whose real name is Hercules, is now their like mascot and friend, which is really cute.
Gets his own little baseball shirt.
yeah, that was nice. And then we get the ending where people fade away like they got Thanos out of existence, and then we find out like what happened to them. I like that one guy got really into the 60s and they never saw him again. That was funny.
It was pretty sweet at the end. I actually cried. I cried when Benny stole home base and they gave each other a little thumbs up, and we moved over to the photo of all the Sandlot kids together. I did. If a week goes by where I don't cry, it's going to be shocking, but it got me teared up. It was, and oh, by the way, Benny grew up just fine.
Okay, I was wondering what your take was on older Benny, because like he looks very different. It doesn't look like the same guy, Like I don't know if
I disagree.
Yeah,
and apparently that was his actual brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked kind of like an Italian New Yorker, kind of Freddie Mercury with that stash.
Yeah, the mustache is like,
yeah.
That was good.
I wasn't upset about that. Yeah, I was into it. I felt, I don't want to say I have a crush on Benny now, but it's like, one of those childhood crushes that you're like, oh yeah. And then I was like, am I creepy? Because I'm still like, what a guy. But now I feel okay because we finished with an adult version and I feel absolved of my discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can, the actual guy is an adult now too, so you could find him and stalk him.
Pervin that dish. Which, by the way, the kids, so I was like, I looked up one of those where are they now kind of things, because this kind of had a big resurgence, like I think a couple years ago, because it was the 25th anniversary. Anyway, pretty much none of these guys are acting anymore. Like some of them were like, I'm a dad and I kind of act when I can get work. And the one that really stood out to me was Marty York, who played Yaya. There was a photo of him. Yaya's just this little spindly thing. Marty York is jacked.
Oh, yeah.
He's like enormous. I laughed and it was very confusing. Apparently he's like a personal trainer or something. But it was kind of entertaining to see all of these guys grown up, and I wonder if they're still friends.
It's funny if you Google really any movie, Google will like give you just a bunch of thumbnails of the different people that are in the movie, like just the cast. And it's interesting opening it because like some of them look totally different than they did as kids. Like I couldn't connect them at all. And then other ones look like identical. So like the redhead kid looks exactly the same as an adult.
He was in some other stuff. Like, well, I guess a couple of them were when they were kids. Like I think a couple of them did the Mighty Ducks movies, and I remember the redhead kid from something else. Couldn't tell you what right now.
Was it The Big Green, a soccer movie that came out 2 years later that he was in?
I don't think so.
Okay. I remember, I haven't seen that, but this did kind of make me remember that the 90s was like, there was a lot of kids' sports movies that came out around this time.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that one was like, hey, we got the kid from the Sandlot and now he's playing soccer. Check it out.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. There were a lot of sports-based movies.
So they're remaking this into a TV series with the original cast, according to this March 2019 article I found.
I'd watch that probably.
I wonder what they'll do, because the movie takes place in the early 60s. So are they going to like make the
80s?
The 80s or 90s? Like, I don't know. This sounds like a terrible idea, and they should not do it. They should definitely.
What are they going to do? Like a community league? Like what is going to be?
Maybe they're all adults. Oh, okay. Here's what it's going to be. They're all adults, and some other kids have discovered the Sandlot, and they don't like it, so they just fucking crush them at baseball. It's just a bunch of adults bullying a bunch of children that are like, "This is our turf."
Yeah. Who's the kids team? The cast of Stranger Things.
I mean, if they all get beat up, then I'm okay with that. Nothing against the actual cast of Stranger Things. I just don't like that show.
What?
Well,
oh God, this is okay.
We'll take this offline. The first season was great. They just should have ended it. The fact that it became like this ongoing thing, completely unnecessary. That's my take.
We'll have to talk about this later.
Yeah. So the Sandlot sequel, either that or the Sandlot is going to be turned into condos. That's probably how you do it. And then they have to baseball their way out of that whole situation.
Yeah. Save the Sandlot.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have to say about the Sandlot. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Alana?
Not really. I mean, yeah, it kind of took me back for nostalgia's sake. If you've seen this as a kid and you loved it, I'd say like definitely watch it again, check it out, but maybe keep your expectations low. It's plot's a little thin. It was nice to revisit it. If you like baseball, sure, do it. Summer shenanigans, like I said, a lot of those vibes. I wouldn't like, this is a kind of movie that I would watch if like I was doing something on my phone or like getting some work done in the evening, wrapping up some work from the day. This isn't something that I would be like, yeah, for sure, like sit down with a bowl of pot and really dig into this movie. Yeah, if your kids are bored, put it on. I give this 5 grown-up Benny stud mustaches out of 10.
I think that's a good summation of it. I think I probably enjoyed it a little bit more than you in that, I don't know, maybe it's just it was targeted to me as a demographic.
It's a boy thing.
Yeah. And I remember watching it at that age, and it sort of just does evoke a lot of feelings of being a kid in the summer, and summer's different when you're an adult. It's not as fun.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid,
summer 2020 especially.
Oh God. Yeah. So yeah, that made me nostalgic for going outside. That's what it did.
I also think like I guess we were the same. We were just a few years younger than when this came out than the kids in the movie. So it's very like if you're in your mid to late 30s, you're probably gonna enjoy it somewhat.
I'm gonna give it 6.5 big pickles.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, that is it for this week's episode of Ex Post Watcho. If you would like to get in contact with us, we have an email address, expostwatcho@gmail.com. We'd love if you had any movie recommendations or you just have any thoughts about what we've watched or said so far. We're on Facebook and Instagram at expostwatcho. And as of now, we're on pretty much all of the platforms for podcasts, with the exception of Pandora, because their license agreement thing looked really scary, and I decided to deal with that later. So if you don't mind, leave us a review. That'd be nice.
Only if it's good.
Only if it's good. So join us next week, and we'll be watching Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.